Welcome, dear readers. You're listening to Time to Read, a Winnipeg Public Library podcast book club. We are recording today from the Millennium Library in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, which is within Treaty 1 territory, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ininew, and Dakota peoples, and in the National Homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. In this episode, we will be discussing 10 minutes 38 seconds in This Strange World by Aleph Shafak. I'm Dennis from the Idea Mill, and like Sabotage Sanan, I also feel more comfortable with people who aren't perfect in any way. Across the table from me is...
I'm Toby. I'm an outreach librarian based out of here at Millennium Library, and if I had 10 minutes, 38 seconds remaining, I'd probably just think about every embarrassing moment in my life. And across the table from me is...
Hi, I'm Trevor. I'm usually at the Louis Riel Library, and I was sad to find out that Harry Kafka Street was made up, and I could not find it on Google Street View.
I looked that up too.
A good book can carry me away from an average and ordinary day, yeah. So keep it down, leave me alone, close the doors and turn off the phone, 'cause all I ever really need is a little more time to read.
And you, dear readers, we wouldn't do this without you. If you've got comments about what we've read or maybe some book suggestions, we'd love to hear it. You can find our email address and all our social media outlets by going to wpl-podcast.winnipeg.ca and scrolling to the bottom of the page. Hang around till the end of the episode to enjoy our internationally renowned segment, Nerd Words for Word Nerds. Before we proceed further, let's check in with the panel. What's up?
I'll tell you what, I am in a book nerd heaven right now because not only do I have the new Stephen King book checked out on my card, but the new Michael Connelly book came in, and I have some vacation time coming up. So very excited to get into Never Flinch, which is Stephen King's newest that features one of his favorite characters, Holly Gibney. And word on the street is Michael Connelly is introducing a new detective in this new book. So two things I'm very excited about.
Which one are you going to read first?
Oh, Stephen King.
Okay.
Yeah.
Priorities. Yeah. I had mentioned a couple of podcasts ago that Disney Plus was going to be airing the Murderbot stories as a series. And I'm pleased to say I watched them this past weekend because I was waiting until they were finished so I could binge. Because each episode is like 22 minutes long. There's like 10 of them. I just tore through it in a weekend, and I'm extremely happy with how it turned out. I'm one of these people who don't visualize well. So even though I had kind of images of the characters in my mind, I don't have strong images, and the way that they portrayed the characters was different than what I had imagined in my mind's eye, but it instantly made sense. I just loved that extra aspect of it. I thought the performances were amazing, and they stuck very close to the source material. So if you haven't seen it yet and you like the books, I think you will like the series very much.
That's awesome.
It was. You know when you're always a little nervous that they're going to mess up something you like? Mm-hmm. They didn't mess it up. They did a great job. And they're apparently set for going to do a season 2. Yeah. So, and I'm assuming they're just going to keep following the novellas. So that's a lot to look forward to. I'm looking forward to how they do art.
Oh, yes, that's right. The
ship artificial intelligence. Yeah.
And it's an acronym, and there's a swear in there, I think.
Yes, that's right. I'd forgotten that. Okay.
Join our VIP circle to find out what the swear is.
Okay, so let's get on with the episode then. Toby's going to tell us about the author, after which Trevor will give us a summary of the book.
Okay. Aleph Shafak was born October 25th, 1971 in Strasbourg, France, where her father was studying for a PhD. After her parents separated, she moved with her mother to Ankara, Turkey. Divorce was pretty unusual at this time, and often young divorcees were married off as they were seen as needing someone to protect them. However, her grandmother stepped up, raising Shafak so her mother could return to university. She started a diary at age 8, but real life was so boring that she started to write fiction instead. It was a very quick journey from diaries into short stories, and from that moment, she kept writing. She obtained an undergraduate degree in international relations at Middle East Technical University, a master's degree in women's studies, and a PhD in political science. She has taught at universities in Turkey, the US, and the UK, including St. Anne's College at Oxford. Her first novel, Pinhen, was published in 1998. It was written in Turkish, as were the several novels following it. Her first book, written in English, The Saint of Incipient Insanities, was published in 2004, and she has continued to write in English since. As she says, I still find it easier to express melancholy and longing in Turkish, but humor is definitely easier in English. We don't have a word for irony in Turkish. After the publication of her 2006 book, The Bastard of Istanbul, she was prosecuted on charges of insulting Turkishness. The book is about the Armenian genocide, which the Turkish government denies. She was acquitted, though moved out of Turkey and to London following this ordeal. She has written a total of 21 books, including fiction and nonfiction. Her work has been shortlisted for the Women's Prize, Costa Novel Award, Booker, and International Impact Dublin Literary Award. Sometimes described as Turkey's most famous female writer, her books have been translated into 58 languages. She currently lives in the UK with her husband. She has 2 children, and apparently she enjoys listening to heavy metal music.
She sounds really cool.
Yeah.
So the book that we're going to talk about today, 10 minutes, 38 seconds in this strange world. I think to go do a summary of it, I'm going to have to do it a little bit differently this time and talk first about what the title means and then talk a little bit about the structure of the book because I think it's important for understanding it. So the This Strange World part of the title comes from a quotation at the very beginning of the book from Albert Einstein. And he is talking when he learned about his dear friend's death, Michel Bissot. And so he writes, now he has again preceded me a little in parting from this strange world. This has no importance. For people like us who believe in physics, the separation between past, present, and future has only the importance of an admittedly tenacious illusion. So right from the start, friendship is front and center. And so the 10 minutes, 38 seconds part of the title comes from this scientific theory that when somebody dies, when their heart stops, there is still persistent brain activity for a while afterwards, that death is not instantaneous. And in the main character's case in this book, whose name is Leela, the book opens with the 2 words, the end. And we learn that she has just recently been murdered. She is a sex worker, and she has been dumped in a dumpster on the outskirts of Istanbul. So from that point, the first, I would say maybe 2/3 of the book is a section called The Mind. And it's broken up into chapters that are based on the number of seconds or minutes after her heart stops, but before her brain functions end. And based on different types of senses, whether it's smell or taste or touch, her mind flashes back to different moments in her life, right back from when she was born up to some of her early childhood memories. And then we get towards the end of the 10 minutes, 38 seconds. And by that point, we've got a good idea of Leela's life. And throughout this section of the book, we get to learn about 5 of her closest friends that she just refers to as the 5. And then at the end of the 10 minutes, 38 seconds, Leela's brain stops. And for all intents and purposes, that is the end of Leela's story. But the next section, which is the body, picks up at the moment where her 5 dear friends find out that she has been murdered. And this is a shorter section, but the tone shifts a little bit here, and we get to see what Leela meant to these 5 characters and the lengths that they will go to try to honor their friend and give her the burial that she deserves. And then the last section is almost like a coda called The Spirit. And it's sort of poetic. We can talk about what it means and what we think of it. And so that is, short summary, 10 minutes, 38 seconds in this strange world.
Good summary.
Yeah. Great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So.
And that was 100% non-AI.
I could tell.
Okay. We could tell.
That was very Trevor.
I worked this month.
Yes. And we love it when you do. You do a good job. So what are your impressions of the book?
I generally liked it. I'm a literary fiction hoe, so this is my jam.
Show.
I like the very lyrical, poetic writing, a little bit of magical realism. I really liked the first part, her history, her family, how she ended up where she did. The second part felt really different. Like it felt like an entirely different novel. It went from something very poignant and serious to something that I think was intentionally trying to be funny. And I found it very jarring. So those are my first impressions, I guess.
Sure. I think of all the books that we've read maybe so far this year on the podcast, this has been my favorite. I agree with what Toby said, that I think if the book had ended just after the mind section, I would feel very differently about it. I would probably like it even more because it would be more sort of a similar tone, and we get the whole story and then ends. But in some ways we don't get the whole story because the focus does shift. And like Toby said, the tone changes. It's jarring. There's a bit of a Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah, it's like a caper
element to it, which was weird, but I kind of dug it. And I kind of just, like, I was able to switch the gears and be right on board. And this section, I don't know if this will ring true to you both, but it reminded me a little bit like of a Marion Taves book where like in the midst of tragedy, there can be like really funny things that happen. And I just love seeing these 5 characters who we hear about individually through Leela's memory, but to see them all together. And then, of course, I had to go back and read a bit of it. Like, these friends didn't just meet for the first time at the hospital. Like, they were regular sort of, because I guess even like my favorite, Sabotage, would go to the nightclubs at night and stuff. So they weren't strangers. They knew Leela, and maybe they knew each other more or less. But that section was definitely like a hard turn from the first. And I'm not sure what I think about the last little section about the soul. I maybe want to hear what you guys think, what it means.
I know that there was a change in tone, but the way I was reading the book this month kind of obscured it from me a little bit. I was, again, late with my reading, so I was trying to finish it last night, and my cat would not let me read.
Cooper.
Yeah.
It was a bizarre evening. I'm trying to read, and Cooper is constantly bugging me for attention. When I finally got sick of it and went outside to read, the squirrels in my neighborhood were making such a racket, and they wouldn't leave me alone. They seemed to be very angry that I was sitting on my front step. So I didn't even read it last night. I read it this morning. I remember complaining a couple of episodes back about when we were reading Outline by Rachel Cusk that it represented everything I hated about literary fiction. This one represents like everything I like about literary fiction. The language was beautiful, but not in the way. She's a very lyrical writer, but it doesn't sound like she's writing to hear her own voice. The language all serves a purpose, and she intertwined a lot of Turkish words and terms. There's a little glossary at the back to help you with that, but it all makes sense in context. I really like that. It reminds me kind of To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, where even when there was not much happening in the book, the language is enough to carry me along with it. I thought Leela's story was compelling, and it was sad, and it'd make me upset, and you really care about the character. And then when we switched to the after with her friends and them in their grief trying to figure out how to honor their friend who was going to essentially be tossed aside in a rubble heap, buried in with a number instead of a name, and the way they were trying to deal with that. Yeah, it was like a heist. There were parts, especially where they were being chased by police and going down the alley, and it's like, let's go to the bridge. And it was kind of like a wacky caper, but also it's just like, that was the insanity of Istanbul and of their lives as outsiders. I really enjoyed that part, the way these very different individuals were still, with very different and strong opinions, were still able to work together and to share so much love and care for each other. And then, the little coda at the end, I didn't delve too deeply into it. It just felt to me like just a kind of a little sign off at the end. So I really enjoyed this one. I was kind of reluctant to start reading it because even though I thought the concept...
literary fiction.
Yeah, it was literary fiction. It seemed very high concept, and I thought, maybe I won't enjoy this one. And it took me a while to start it, but I wish I had started it sooner because it turned out to be a very easy read despite being literary and despite having all this great vocabulary, which to me is a sign of an excellent writer, to be able to do all of that and to still make it an easy read that you can pick up in between when you have a few moments. So yeah, I really liked this one.
So yeah, I thought about the soul section a bit, and I don't know.
Resident Christian weighing in.
Yeah. So this, just for the readers who haven't read this book yet, this happens at the very end after they have done their best to give Leela a proper burial send off, and so cut forward to her body's in the Bosphorus, but her soul then it goes into sort of almost like a impressionistic state where she encounters a betta fish that she thinks, and maybe it is the same fish that was let out of its bowl when she was born. And the fish kind of takes her forward again into, we're not sure what, an afterlife, a new awareness, a new kind of experience. And then, I don't know if you realize this, or I only went to the end, that there's little betta fish throughout the whole book, that at every few paragraphs, there's a little symbol.
Oh.
And I was like, what is that thing? And I looked up betta fish, and that's a betta fish. Those little things that look like legs are sort of like characteristic of it. So it's almost like if that's her soul, or if that's like her, I don't know what you want, like her protector or something, or it's throughout the whole book. It's there. It kind of ties everything together with a nice little bow.
I did recognize that as a fish in the imagery, but I didn't connect it to the betta fish.
Yeah. So I mean, kudos to the copy editor or whoever, unless maybe it was Elif herself that wanted it. But it's a cool little book that's kind of a unique structure. I thought that was just one more neat little sort of part of the whole package, that the fish kind of ties everything together.
Now, I finished this like a week ago, so I forget. But is it the same fish that is released at her birth?
I think it's supposed to be the same fish when all those animals were let out. And then she was saying, if it goes one way, it will die. But maybe if it goes the other way, it will make its way right out to the sea or something.
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah, and it's specifically referenced it at the end that was the same fish, that as her spirit approached it, she saw it was the same fish that had been released, and the fish said, "What took you so long?" Mm. So, yeah.
It also reminds me of the concept in this book of the water family as opposed to the blood family. Your water family is like the friends you accumulate in your life, if your blood family sucks. And so, it ties back to water and the ocean and...
The other thing it made me think of is, remember a while back when we read the death of Vivek Oji, and the idea that somebody that's on the margins is now made the center. And I was thinking, like, all these characters are in the margins of society, but it's their story. It's her story, and then it becomes the story of her friendship. So it sort of celebrates friendship. And like you say, the found family, or the water family is the lovely term that she uses in this book too. So did you guys have a favorite friend of the five that she made along the way?
I'm not sure I could pick a favorite.
Yeah, same. I think, like, one of the things I didn't like about this book is that we learn about all of her friends in the main section of the book, but then by the time we get to the second section, I've kind of forgotten a lot about them. So I had to keep trying to remember who was who and who was from her hometown and who was... Yeah, I found that a little hard to keep straight.
Yeah.
That's where the nicknames were really handy.
But
because I remember Sabotage.
And Sinan, they're very similar.
I know, but they almost always referred to Sinan as Sabotage. And that was like he was the Sabotage radio, providing her with the information. So that was the childhood friend that then later came out to find her. And then Nostalgia Nalan, I just knew that was the transvestite, is how she was described. She was described as transvestite, and I think at that time period that would have been the more common term.
But she wasn't just a woman or a man who dressed like a woman. Like, she'd had surgery.
She had surgery, yeah. But it's just, I think that's how she was referred to in the book.
Right.
Which I think, from my memory of the 90s, or like late 80s, early 90s, that would have been the term. Because I don't think I heard the term transgender until much later than that.
Yeah, and we should say that the character dies in 1990 in the novel. So, so it is, terms and things won't be as up to date. Exactly.
Yeah, it is slightly historical fiction as well, right?
Yeah, well, throughout the novel, there are major historical events that are tied in at different points.
Yeah. And sometimes just very casually, in a way, like when Leela's remembering the story of her house, and that it was originally owned by an Armenian doctor and family, and then one day they weren't there. Well, that's the Armenian genocide. But it's it just talked about from the perspective of the victors, that moved in, and you don't get any detail on what happened to that nice doctor and his family. They're no longer there, and they may have hidden money in their house, so they died.
Yeah, and in the brief mention of the Kennedy assassination,
Right.
but not by name. And then there was
In the
There's
first Iraqi war, like in the resignation of Margaret Thatcher, it just is it's a one line kind of throw off.
just to kind of remind you of where you are in history. Yeah.
And I don't know a whole lot about Turkish history, but it sounds like, at least in the novel, the May Day protests in 1977 were, at least for, of course, the characters in this book, pivotal for Leela and Dali. And I didn't know anything about it.
No, I'm largely ignorant
Yeah,
of Turkish history.
So I would imagine somebody that's well versed in Turkish history would find even more things to connect with. But having no connection to it, I still found a lot to like in this book.
It made me want to read more Turkish history, just to get a sense of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that massacre, the workers' protests, that sounded absolutely awful. It's always shocking to hear about things like that, even though we know they happen with unfortunate regularity across the world. So for both of you, you found the first part of the book more interesting than the second, would you say?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really liked just her learning about her history and the moments, big and small. I found her family very interesting.
Yeah, I found that whole part, there were so many heartbreaking moments in it.
Yeah.
Like right from the start, when she was born, there was that whole little description of how, some babies, they hesitated to come into the world as if debating whether they should go through all of that or not. And that she came smelling like an angel, according to the midwife. And then immediately she's essentially taken from her mother and given to her aunt.
Yep.
Lied to about her mom right from the start. And I mean, from the start of the book, because it starts with her as a sex worker who has been murdered and tossed into a dumpster, that obviously things haven't gone perfectly in her life. But to see that it's like right from the very start, didn't have a chance for the version of a fulfilling life that might have been imagined for her. Just throughout the whole thing with her uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time he's introduced it, he's like, oh, good, she has a positive, encouraging role model in her family, someone who's like being positive towards her. I thought, oh, a little ray of sunshine, and it has to be dashed.
Yeah. With that one line, at the night, the screen was left open and in came the mosquitoes and the uncle.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh shit. As soon as I read that,
There was
that
also-
was the moment.
Yeah.
As soon as he entered the room at night, it's like, oh no, don't tell me.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the criticisms I read about this book, is that that section of it and is filled with so many kind of cliches. But I mean, there are cliches for a reason. These things happen,
Yeah.
And I guess the reviewer I was reading was like, oh, don't go there, don't go there, don't go there. Oh, she goes there. But I mean, a sex worker murdered and left in a dumpster, like that's a big cliche. But here,
it humanizes her. It centers
Right.
her story. She's not just discarded.
yeah.
But I also think of her brother, who was also another big source of joy in her life, and then died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her poor mom.
Yeah.
And it's like, you wonder if her daughter hadn't been taken from her, would she have had the breakdown that she had? Would she have maybe done better?
Yeah.
Would she have had someone to talk to about what was happening,
Yeah.
Yeah.
She still had that nurturing spirit by feeding the birds on the roof and, the little pigeons or whatever. And yeah, actually with you mentioning all of the like heartbreaking things in that first section makes me think now the second section, why I didn't not hate it, was it's almost like a tonic to the first section, that you see all these friends that are kind of goofy and they love each other, but they kid each other, and they're on an adventure. I mean, the idea that the reason for the adventure is sad, of course. They're trying to find where their friend was buried. But that whole thing is like, yeah, these people are fun. Maybe a nice little sort of palate cleanser after the main story. I don't know.
I mean, I didn't hate the second section. I just thought it was a jarring tone shift.
Yeah.
And I didn't enjoy it as much as the first.
Yeah.
I think I did enjoy it for similar reasons that you mentioned, though. Like, there are so many heartbreaking aspects about Layla's story. And one of the themes that I like when I encounter it in literature is that even in the midst of sorrow and struggle, there are always moments of happiness and positive things you can pull from life. And that's what people do. You know, when you talk about the triumph of the human spirit, that's a big part of it, right? It's hard to cope with all the bad things that happen, and Layla had so much of it. But in that second section, you really see that those 5 friends were tied to her so tightly that they would do the most ridiculous, dangerous thing to honor her. And they absolutely did not have to do that. And most people would not do any of that. But they were so tight. They loved each other so much. And to have that in your life, to have people in your life that care about you that much, despite all that she went through, she succeeded in many of the things that we consider important in life.
Yeah, there's that saying that, I love them so much, I would take a bullet for them. Well, in this book, Sabotage literally takes a bullet for her at the end.
Yeah.
What did you like so much about that guy? I found him a little pathetic.
Ouch.
Well, I mean, he's
this is what I like about him. Maybe
Okay.
I like of all the characters, I've maybe found him the most relatable in that he seemed to have, to the outside eye, he made it as a person, right? He was married, he had a couple of kids, he had a good job, doing all this stuff, but he wasn't happy. And he was holding a torch for Layla the entire time. You realize that he loved her, and he was just waiting for the moment, and it just never happened. I feel
like, though, if that moment came, he wouldn't have taken it.
Yeah, I think the moment he does take it, it's too late in a way because she has passed away. But when he takes the bullet, I feel like yes, he's finally maybe doing the thing. And actually, I laughed out loud. Maybe I could just, if you guys don't mind, just read the what happens to Sabotage. It's just this is towards the very end where they've all gone back. Again, maybe this is a cliche, but it's kind of nice how the 5 of them are now all living in the apartment together, Friends style. But whatever, I buy it. It's nice. And so they say, "Where's Sabotage?" And then they said, well, they had fresh justification for calling him that now that he had finally and fully sabotaged his life. After being shot while pushing the dead body of a prostitute off the Bosphorus Bridge, accompanied by dubious friends, he had been all over the newspapers. Within the same week, he had lost his job, his marriage, his house. He had learned only belatedly that his wife had been having a long-term affair, and that was why she had always been happy to see him leave in the evenings. That had given him some leverage during the divorce settlement. As for his wife's family, they no longer talked to him, although thankfully his children did, and he was allowed to see them every weekend, which was all that mattered. He now had a small stall near the Grand Bazaar selling knockoff merchandise. He was making half the money he used to, but he did not complain.
Pretty neat, everything just falls into place perfectly.
I know, but it's like one of those 80s comedies.
That's not really falling into place perfectly.
Well, he's it just so happens my wife was having an affair, so I'll get to see the kids, and the divorce is amicable, and I'm not making as much money as I used to be, but I'm happy.
Yeah, I feel good about that.
Tick, tick, tick.
Well, one of the themes, again, is, friends who aren't perfect in any way. Uh-huh. And, yeah, he definitely has his flaws, but
I feel like his ending is perfect. It's a very, happily ever after for him.
Well, it came at a great cost, though, because he lost the love of his life. Mm-hmm. He lost the love of his life, and in realizing that, he knew he needed to change his life because he couldn't tolerate it anymore. He'd given up the chance to actually connect to her in the way that he had hoped to. And so now, screw it. I made the wrong choice previously in my life. All of that stuff went wrong. I lost that all anyway. I'm not making as much money now, but I don't have to do that ridiculous work anymore. I don't have to try to pretend I love my wife that I don't love and who didn't love me. It came at a cost. So I feel like that's fair. And if you can succeed that, I think that that's great. And sometimes people do.
And also first impressions are strong. And the first impression of him in the book is when Leela is sick. Remember, after the trip, she comes down with, I can't remember what she comes down with. And then, so the pharmacist comes over, and he's the pharmacist's son. And he says to her, sometimes when I need to get a shot, I hold my stuffy, my favorite is an owl. And he says, you can hold my hand if you want. And she takes his hand, and he doesn't let go. And did I tear up? No. I might have. Maybe a little bit. Maybe I tear. Maybe I tear. I thought of that, just of this little boy, offering his hand and her taking it, and that little moment of sort of unconditional kind of grace was like, yeah, sabotage, you're all right. And so, but I totally agree with you. You totally lose the thread of all the friends in the first half. And so by the time you get to the second, you're like, okay, I recognize that name, but I had to go back and figure out, like, say, for example, why was Zainab named Zainab 122?
Oh, and that stuck with me because it was interesting that anyone would put a number in their name like that. It looks like the first part of an email address.
Totally.
Yeah, like a username.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuck with me too. That one was I feel like the person I remembered the most, because I was like, oh yeah, these numbers refer to the fact that she's short. And
yeah. Also on the Winnipeg subreddit, there's a regular user who has a part of their name is like 154 centimeters or something like that. And I've never seen it referred to otherwise, but I assume it's their height. So I just connected that with this character in the novel.
Or it was just like the random collection of numbers that Reddit suggested after all the usernames they wanted to use were.
Well, no, they included a CM at the end of the number. So the Reddit user anyway must be referring to a dimension of some sort.
Oh, CM. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah. So if you're listening,
whoever you are,
the anonymous Reddit user, I recognize your username.
Maybe they were influenced by this book.
Who knows?
This book won an award for having a strong sense of place. And I'm wondering if you felt that. Did you feel like you were in Turkey or Istanbul or Van? Were you immersed in the story and the place in ways that were particularly immersive?
Well, this is an area where I always struggle because I really struggle with visualization. And so like the sense, I refer to Istanbul constantly throughout the book and its chaotic nature and its beauty and its messiness, its cruelty and its arbitrariness. Like, I think there was one spot where she was saying there's like multiple Istanbuls and they compete against each other. And I did feel it was very much focused on the city, that the city was a character almost as much as like New York in that Amor Towles book we read. And that clearly there was a lot of love for Istanbul by the author, it felt like. So in that sense, yeah, but I don't know. How was it for you?
Well, as you guys know, I'm a map guy. And so I appreciated that there was a map at the beginning of at least the copy I had. That
it's not a very helpful map.
I was going to say not very helpful at all. Although a beautiful picture of a seagull at the top, but not well. Like I couldn't quite make sense of where the numbers and the places ended up. And I'm wondering if that was intentional because, like you said, Dennis, she makes a big point about how the idea of Istanbul is sort of liquid and changing, and even that small example of how Harry Kafka Street got its name, and because it used to be Kafkan Street, and then the N fell off, and something else happened, and even like Leela herself, her birth name was spelt with a Y, Leyla, and then she changed it to Leila. And whenever asked, she said, "I dropped the Y for yesterday and added the I for the infinite," which I thought was kind of poetic and cool. So yeah, I felt Istanbul, but I don't think I felt it so much as a sense of place, as more of it felt like another being, like a living, breathing, changing organism. But there are other books that I've read where I've had a very clear, if I close my eyes, I could picture the town square, I could picture this, I could picture that. Very hard to do, I thought, in this book for me.
How about yourself?
Yeah, similar. If I was talking about this book, the sense of place, I wouldn't mention because, as you two said, I didn't feel very strongly that it encapsulated, the city or the country. I do like that it goes into places that, like, if you were a tourist or if you were a visitor to Istanbul, you probably wouldn't go to the street of brothels or down the back alleys or to the cemetery of the companionless, So it's kind of these places that just exist on the margins that you get to see.
It pains me to say it, but probably the book that we read recently that had the best sense of place was I Only Read Murder. Like, I really could picture that little town.
Yeah. But one thing I liked about this book, too, was the characters, like the friends and such, had different philosophical and religious opinions. Nostalgia Nalan was like an atheist. Forget the first part of the name, 122. She was very devout and kind of a mix of beliefs otherwise. They were all presented, I thought, very fairly and balanced and in a way that they could still love and care for each other. Like, seeing those relationships, the depiction of religion in general was really mostly Islam, of course. Aspects of it, I found it a little hard to read because it was like Layla's father, as he descended into more rigid, controlling, extreme forms of religion, really taking control of his wives' and daughters' lives. I don't know where I'm going with that, really. I found that aspect of the book really hard to read because of how many lives it affects.
And when someone seems to be so sure of themselves that this is the only way, and to inflict that on the entire household, yeah.
Yeah, I think my favorite phrase from the book that dealt with that, where after Layla had died and the doctor who'd performed the autopsy, and there was that old guy who worked there who was going to move the body. The old guy had said something like, may Allah forgive her for any sins she might have committed. And the doctor kind of scoffed and might have, and he responds back, well, perhaps that's so, but who knows who deserves heaven more, this unlucky woman or the zealot who thinks he is the only chosen of God. And that kind of summarized to me a lot of the feeling of this book, because a lot of the very religious people in the book who were also very controlling and such were so certain that they were correct and they were sanctified and they were chosen of God. And they just spit on those that they held to not be up to that standard, that they were dismissed and rejected the way no one in her family wanted anything to do with her body afterwards. They were extremely clear about that. The way that, even when she had called home, when she was getting lonely, once her dad picked up the phone, he's like, never call here again. You have shamed us. Those were all convinced that they were correct. Her father was convinced that he was absolutely correct in anything, and it resulted in such cruelty and arbitrariness, and it was so limiting to the lives of everyone around him. And you contrast that with the friends who were just very supportive and caring and did more good for each other than it felt like Layla's father had done for anybody. Even though at the beginning, he wasn't the worst guy, right? He didn't beat his wives. That's a low bar. Yeah. It's a low bar,
But it did say in the beginning he loved both his wives for different ways.
It's the patriarchy, though, right? It's. I mean, I think this country and more extreme or conservative forms of Islam are very male dominated, and she couldn't exist in that in that kind of system.
Yeah.
No, there are some people who just, no matter how restrictive you try to make the world around them, they have that spark inside and will not be held down.
Although then I think she kind of ended up under the control of Bitter Ma, who was a matriarch in more ways than one, who her dad was kind of her protector, but also her captor. So maybe it's not just men.
No, that was Bitter Ma was the example of capitalism. She got so upset that they couldn't host the U.S. Navy,
U.S. Navy, yeah,
because of the protests and the rebellion, and that's what she was ticked off.
Yeah.
But also, the one time she didn't get a John through Bitter Ma, she ends up murdered.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And for all the faults of Turkish society that were shown in the book, also they had licensing for sex workers and health checks and things like that. And that's progressive.
Yeah, which is strange considering the society is so conservative.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of highlighted the hypocrisy of of everything. That one guy who was got really upset at Bitter Ma for the poster of that sultan that she had. And this didn't happen in history, and you're lying, and he's very insulting towards her and her profession while he is engaging in using their services, which is the height of hypocrisy. And so when she got her revenge by hooking him up with a sex worker who had to stop working because she had multiple venereal diseases, it was kind of a lighthearted moment, which is not, not typical.
There's, aside from the five friends and her family, there's one character we haven't really talked a whole lot about, and that is D/Allie, or Dally, who was a person who she met while she was working as a prostitute. He came in and would visit and talk and paint her and paint everyone there and play music. And eventually they got married, I think.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
yes,
They did. Yeah.
Oh, they did.
I can't remember if it was just sort of like she was wearing a wedding dress, but they did get married.
Yeah.
And they had, it was probably the happiest time of Leila's life.
Yeah. Just unfortunately brief.
Yeah.
I didn't really get that guy's deal, though. Like, he's an artist and he's an activist, but he doesn't have a job. So, like, where's the money coming from? Like, he was paying for Leila's services. He gave all that money to Bitter Ma so she would release her so they could get married.
Well, that's one of the things they found out after he died, is that the money came from loan sharks.
Right.
And then so she had to deal with a lot of debts afterwards, which, loan sharks aren't known to waive those after someone passes. Someone's always got to pay the price.
Which is why she got back into the business, too.
Because she pretty much had to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was assuming during the course of their romance that he was committing some crimes on the side.
Yeah.
But that
like
might
more
not,
than just like activist crimes,
yeah, like at some point some money was changing hands in a less than legal manner,
etc.
I had assumed that, but after finding out that he was into it with the loan sharks, that I thought maybe he was just borrowing money and then living beyond his means that way. And it sounded like he had come from some money, right? But just was like not in the family's good graces anymore. So he may have had a starter amount of money that he kind of blew through because he was trying to spend more time with Leila. I don't know. That part was unclear. There were some unfinished things. Like we kind of saw who the killers were and where they had connected with the sex workers that they had murdered, but no resolution to whether they were ever caught or not. Or
It seemed like they were, though, because that guy at the food stand.
Yeah.
Well, that's a maybe, right? Like he might have called in a tip.
Yeah.
Maybe the cops followed up on it and maybe they caught those guys.
Yeah.
But there's no actual resolution to it.
Because they were being pretty sloppy with all that blood splatter everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, I broke my nose. That's all it is. It's like, geez, you could have wiped it down. And the little angels.
Yeah.
There were a lot of little details in this book, too, like maybe too many details where you can really wrap up all of them. We are running out of time, more or less. So do we have any final comments that we would like to... Anything we haven't discussed you want to share?
I'm just so glad that you two liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure.
It makes me feel good that I picked a book that you enjoyed. That was literary fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've enjoyed many of your books.
Yeah, I know. It's just always
we've
it's always
enjoyed
a
more
risk.
than we haven't, I would say. Yeah.
And any final comments from you, Trevor?
No, I just one quotation that kind of I kept thinking of. I don't know who said this originally, but there's this quotation say that we are not humans having a spiritual experience. We are spirits having a human experience. And I kind of thought that could apply here.
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay, so I guess we'll wrap it up there. I can fairly say that we all enjoyed it and would recommend it. Yeah, so that's a good one. Dear reader, let us know if you enjoyed it. So let us move on to our next segment. Can you tell me a book I would also like? Who would like to share their book?
I could go.
On a rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah, no, sure. I can. What made me think of this book was more about the early part of the book we just read, where she's in the dumpster and imagining the immediate after effects of being there, and the boys that found her body and stole her locket and everything. And so the book I am recommending is called The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. It was written in 2002, and it's a story of a teenage girl who was raped and murdered. But after she dies, she is able to see the aftermath from her personal heaven or afterlife and does things, very subtle things, because of course she's a spirit, to try to lead the police and her family towards the killer while she comes to terms with her own deaths. If you haven't read it, it's been 20 plus years since I've read it, but I do remember it was a book that did make me break down and cry at one point.
It's so heavy, that one.
Yeah, but beautiful as well. Just be warned, you will cry while you read it. It was made into a film by Peter Jackson after he did the Lord of the Rings movies. And it's also been adapted into a stage play. So that would be my recommendation, The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold.
I feel like maybe this book has been mentioned on the podcast before. It seems like one we would have talked about. The book I chose was Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. Have we talked about that before?
No, I think you might have put it on suggestion lists before.
Okay.
But I don't think we've read it
Or maybe it was one of those next great read books or something.
Yeah,
it's a graphic novel, right?
Yeah.
I've heard someone talk about it.
Okay, it seems like a podcast book, but I chose it because it's by a female author from the Middle East, and it also has the experience of a character or characters in a country that's experiencing huge change. It's a very popular book. It was ranked on The Guardian and the New York Times 100 best books of the 21st century. So as you said, Trevor, it is a graphic novel. It's a memoir from 2003 about coming of age in Iran during a very tumultuous time. She writes about her life in Tehran from ages 6 to 14, which saw the overthrow of the Shah's regime, the triumph of the Iranian or Islamic Revolution, and the effects of war with Iraq. And like this book, it just kind of shows a portrait of daily life, but this one is in Iran and all the sort of many contradictions between both home and public life. It was turned into an animated film. It was co-directed by the author. It won the jury prize at Cannes and was nominated for Best Animated Feature at the 2000 Academy Awards. And I haven't seen the movie, but I would like to, and I'm probably due for a reread of that book anyway, because it's been many years, but it's a good one. It's Persepolis.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure what to recommend for this one. I was initially thinking of recommending To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee just because of the ties to the lyrical language and its historical fiction. But I was looking up some reviews of it again to refresh myself on it, and I did see a lot of criticism of it based on the fact that it's about racism in the U.S., but it's all from the white people's perspective, and it's very much a white savior story. And I see that, so I'm not going to suggest that, although the language of the book is beautiful. And then I wasn't sure where to go with it, so I looked around a bit and saw a recommendation on Reddit that maybe would be interesting. It's not a book I've read, though. It's called Out of the Easy by Ruda Sepetys. It's 1950, and as the French Quarter of New Orleans simmers with secrets, 17-year-old Josie Moraine is silently stirring a pot of her own. Known among locals as the daughter of a brothel prostitute, Josie wants more out of life than the Big Easy has to offer. She devises a plan to get out, but a mysterious death in the quarter leaves Josie tangled in an investigation that will challenge her allegiance to her mother, her conscience, and Willie Woodley, the brusque madam on Conti Street. Josie is caught between the dreams of an elite college and a clandestine underworld. New Orleans lures her in with a quest for truth, dangling temptation at every turn and escalating to the ultimate test. So this one, it's historical fiction. It involves a child of a sex worker. In this case, it's a murder mystery. So I approve of murder mysteries in general as an entertaining form of reading. And the reviews seem to be very positive about it. So yeah, you might enjoy that as well. Now for everyone's favorite segment, Nerd Words for Word Nerds, where we share words we care about. Who would like to share their word?
Okay, I can.
No.
No?
No, I was just thinking since we did the book order that we could, but I don't have to do that. I have no.
Go ahead, Trevor.
The word I care about this month is betta, as in betta fish. You may have seen that coming. It's often pronounced beta in English, but betta is the correct pronunciation as it's named after the Malaysian term for persistence, toughness. It sounds like Leela.
Mm.
They're characterized by their strength and their survivability. They're also known as the Siamese fighting fish due to their aggressive nature and willingness to kill each other when they're in the same bowl. And they're popular in gambling in the good old days. And maybe even now, for all I know. I have never been to a cockfight or a dog fight or a betta fish fight. I bet they happen. Another interesting thing about betta fish is that they can live outside of water for quite some time because they have something called a labyrinth organ that can process oxygen directly, in addition to their gills where they can draw oxygen out of the water. So as long as they are moist, they can stay on the land. And they're also, not forever, I'm guessing, but for longer than you would think.
Like how long?
Like I'm going to just...
longer than you think?
Longer than you
how
think.
How long do you think?
Like how long
longer
would regular
that?
fish think? Like 5 minutes?
I don't know.
More than 5 minutes.
If it was moist or if it was dry.
Like if a regular fish was moist?
Yeah, because this is the caveat. It has to be moist, right? Yeah.
So you want to do apples to apples. So a regular moist fish, like a pickerel.
Okay.
Well, you should say no more than 5 minutes, right?
I have no idea.
So longer than 5 minutes.
But you're
like I would say in theory, literally indefinitely, because it's got an organ.
I feel like any fish you keep moist is gonna.
No. No, most of them will die without water because the gills process water and take the oxygen out of it. They can't take oxygen out of the air.
Yeah.
But if it's moist, there'll be water there. There'll be water present.
No, yeah. By moist,
not nearly enough.
Like slightly damp.
No, but what he's saying is that it can process air directly.
Like a human.
Okay.
As opposed to through the water. Yeah.
But that's not the most remarkable part about betta fish. And if I can have your patience for just a moment longer, I want to tell you that they were originally called Macropodus pugnux, which translates to aggressive fish with big feet, because they have those elongated pelvic fins that you can sort of see in the book that's sticking out in front of them in all the little pictures. If you want to know about how they mate, and I sure did, the male will create a bubble nest, which is a base for the female to put eggs in. And then the fish have something that they like to call a nuptial embrace, where the male wraps his body around the female, and then 10 to 20 eggs come out after each embrace. And then this is a new word for me, milt. You guys heard of that?
No.
Fish sperm.
Oh.
Fish sperm is sprinkled over the eggs, and then fertilization takes place externally. And after that, then the male chases the female off, because if he doesn't, she eats the eggs. Pretty great, eh? What else do I know about them? I think that's about it.
I'm really just caught up on the moist thing. I'm picturing using a turkey baster to keep fish moist.
Yeah, that might be too moist.
Timing.
I'm thinking more of like a Windex, like a
like
bottle.
a spray bottle.
Yeah,
Okay.
spray bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it's out in a light drizzle or something.
Yeah.
We could do a real time experiment, although
I don't want to harm any fish.
No.
No, you wouldn't harm the betta fish. It likes it.
Yeah. Does it like it, or it can just tolerate it?
It can tolerate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how to follow that up, but I'm going to anyway. So my word also comes directly from the book, and it is the word tasseography, which is a divination or fortune-telling method that interprets patterns in tea leaves, coffee grounds, or wine sediments. And in Turkey specifically, coffee grounds were used for tasseography. Coffee has a very long history in Turkey. Turkish coffee is actually on UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage List.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I found a 2024 BBC article about tasseography, specifically in Turkey, the headline of which is Tasseography, the Turkish tradition that's as big as Tinder. And it talks about how the very first coffee shop was actually opened in Istanbul. It was opened in 1554. And the tradition of tasseography can be traced back to Sultan Suleiman's harem in the 15th, 16th centuries, where the women, they couldn't go out to the public coffee houses. So instead, they had fortune tellers come into the harem to read their coffee grounds, which was a way of trading news and gossip, including which wives were favored by the Sultan. And these days, apparently, tasseography is still going strong in Turkey. There are fortune tellers at some coffee shops. There are apps that provide AI-generated coffee readings or that connect you with virtual fortune tellers. As you know, I've already proven to be adept at tyromancy, so feel free to send me images of your coffee, tea, wine sediment, and I will see what I can do.
If I drank any of those, I would do it.
You don't drink any of those?
No.
No coffee or tea?
I only drink water.
Only water?
Yeah.
No
And he only
juice.
reads murder.
Yeah. Well, no, for dietary, I'm overweight and high blood pressure, and sugary drinks are worse than sugary food in terms of how quickly you can get them in. So several
But
years.
coffee and tea don't have to be sugary.
Oh, I don't like coffee anyway, and tea I just don't drink that often. So I just gave up everything except for water for health reasons.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. So.
Well, you're no fun.
I'm trying to imagine what the first barista looked like in the 1550s.
A lot of
Bearded and tattooed.
Yeah.
They probably
mustache.
still misspelled your name on the coffee cup. When Do I have a Salatman here? Salatman? No? Okay. So my word for this month comes from the book as well. Early in the book, we are told that Benaz's name means 1,000 blandishments. And I immediately had to look up blandishment because I wasn't sure if it was meant to be complimentary or not. Because the first thought was that, bland. And I thought of bland as something where you normally dismiss something as uninteresting. It's bland. But it turns out I'm just missing a whole meaning of bland, which, because the other meaning of it is smooth or soothing, as opposed to invigorating or irritating. Bland and blandishment both come from the same Latin root word, blandus, which means influencing others by flattery, ingratiating, insidious, calm, gentle, agreeable to the senses, and pleasant. So a blandishment is something intended to coax or cajole, like you're trying to convince someone of something in a pleasant and non-irritating way. 1,000 blandishments is a very positive thing, then. Yeah, blandishment. I have a whole new respect for the word bland.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel so bad about being bland or...
Yeah, or not drinking anything that's not bland.
I'll tell you, on the end of a day when you're thirsty and you get some nice cold water, there's nothing better.
Well...
Yeah. Well, as a person who still craves the sugary drinks, like, because I was very into sugary drinks, but...
There's diet drinks, diet soda.
Yeah, but they have a weird aftertaste.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, water doesn't have a weird aftertaste.
I feel like you should get into tea.
I did that for a while.
Yeah. There's a lot of varieties.
Yeah. But the caffeinated teas, I don't really like caffeine that much. And then the herbal teas.
Oh, you got to go with the rooibos.
I love rooibos.
Yeah.
I love rooibos too.
Yeah.
I went through a long period of drinking a lot of rooibos too.
Can I buzz market a local company? There
Please
is
do.
a Cornelia Bean on Academy.
The Manitoba one?
Yeah, Manitoba rooibos.
Yeah, that one's...
That's like one of my favorite teas I discovered just a few months ago, and I've been drinking almost nothing but that.
Yeah, that's very good.
I guess the other thing is I don't really like hot drinks that much. I normally like cold drinks.
Iced tea.
Iced rooibos tea.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No. See, this is all seeming like too much work when I can just turn on the tap and get some really nice cold water.
Cold brew teas recently, where you put just tea bags in a jar, fill it with water, stick it in the fridge. The next day you have cold brewed tea.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
There was a period of time where I thought it would be neat to have iced tea and to make it from actual tea. And the thing is, I'm cheap. So when I went to Superstore, I bought the cheapest tea I could, which turned out to be like 100 bags of black tea. And as a person who's almost always drink just herbal tea, I forgot that black tea has caffeine in it. And so I made this really intense teas, and I'd put them in the fridge, and then I was drinking these very regularly, and I was wondering why I was having so much trouble sleeping or sitting still. So yeah, I kind of went off iced tea after that experience. So just water.
Well, whatever floats your boat. If you're happy with just water, then
and water definitely floats boats.
As does tea. Enough of it.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone has enough tea in one place to float a boat.
And both things would keep fish moist.
Yes.
Indeed.
But the water would be better for the fish. So unfortunately, that's all the time we have this month. Thank you so much for joining us, dear readers. For our next episode, we're going to read and discuss Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. The last remnants of the human race left a dying Earth, desperate to find a new home amongst the stars. Following in the footsteps of their ancestors, they discover the greatest treasure of the past age, a world terraformed and prepared for human life. But all is not right in this new Eden. In the long years since the planet was abandoned, the work of its architects has borne disastrous fruit. The planet is not waiting for them, pristine and unoccupied. New masters have turned it from a refuge into mankind's worst nightmare. Now 2 civilizations are on a collision course, both testing the boundaries of what they will do to survive. As the fate of humanity hangs in the balance, who are the true heirs of this new Earth? Have comments or book suggestions for us? Send us an email. You can find all our contact info at the bottom of the page at wpl-podcast.winnipeg.ca. You can also find all our past episodes there too. If you haven't already, subscribe to Time to Read on your favorite podcasting service. Maybe leave us a review. Tell your book-loving friends about us too. And until next time, make sure you find time to read.
As usual, I've made things worse.